Hi, welcome back. My name is Courtney Morris. Welcome to the channel. I cook random historical recipes that I find that nobody cooks anymore. So I hope you enjoy it. I have an interesting one, which I think I know how it's going to turn out, and it sounds delicious. So the other night we made a big pot roast dinner, and it was really, really good. But of course I've got leftovers. So I've got a leftover roast beef. I've got leftover gravy. The only thing I don't have is mashed potatoes, which this recipe calls for. And I just finished reading one of the Laura Ingalls books, which takes place in the late Victorian era, but we don't actually call it the Victorian era when we refer to Americans, which is really weird. So as I was thinking about that, then my random brain spun off in a direction and was thinking, well, what on earth did the Victorians do with leftovers, if there were any? And so I consulted Mrs. Beeton, and she said to make a baked beef, which sounds terrible. But then when you look at the recipe, it's basically a pot pie with beef, but instead of pastry crust, it's mashed potatoes as your crust. So I'm excited to give this a try and see how this turns out, and I hope it turns out better than the last recipe I did. If you saw that one, that was a major bust, which I was not happy with, but it's okay. Let's get to the cutting board and see how this goes. Okay, so the recipe starts out needing 2 pounds of the roast beef, stewed beef, and the recipe goes through cooking it. I've already got mine cooked, so I've saved a step. So my next thing is 2 pounds of potatoes, and I didn't have any leftovers, so I just cooked some up, and I'm going to mash them right now by hand because I'm going to stay with the historical element of this. Otherwise, I'd use my KitchenAid in a heartbeat. So I've got a bit of butter melted and salt to taste, and continue on until it's really, really smooth. And I guess one thing about the mashed potatoes is I personally like mine garlicky and flavorful, but we're also adding gravy to it. And if you have a very flavorful gravy, then it shouldn't matter. Okay, so next thing on the recipe is to cook up 2 small carrots and 2 small onions. I think I'm just gonna chop these up finely and just saute them for a little bit until they're tender. I don't really like overcooked vegetables. I'm also pretending it's not 100 degrees in this kitchen. But I suppose that's pretty historically accurate as it is. I can't imagine being in those huge kitchens with huge fires, especially on a summer day. I mean, maybe in England it's not terribly bad since they don't get terribly hot weather, but my goodness. I'm a weenie when it comes down to it. I am not a summertime person. So she didn't specify how to cook these. So to make them soft, I think I'm just going to add some water and just do a slight steam, maybe? I don't think sauteing might be the right thing, but I don't know. You know what? I'm just going to cover these and let them sit. Because if this is supposed to be some sort of like pot pie, they're going to have to be soft, but I'll just have to watch it. So from here, she just says to spread in the beef. And then just kind of make some layers, I guess, so it's slightly more I guess so it's just interspersed well. And then more beef. This is smelling so good. I mean, you can't really go wrong with pot roast. And my apologies if the camera's a little wonky. My tripod is sucky. And then I guess the rest of the veggies. Okay. So then I warmed up the rest of the gravy, and she said to fill it until you can't fill it anymore. So let's make sure it gets down in the bottom here. I'm kind of excited for this, but I'm excited for all recipes. Oops. I don't how to put the rest. Okay. Wow, look at that. I have the exact measurements of everything. That's amazing. Okay, so now the part that I'm not looking forward to. Okay, so this is the part where I'm a little hesitant to do, because in the recipe it says to use the rest of the mashed potatoes and make a very smooth cover. But it's going over liquid and it doesn't roll, so it's going to be interesting. So I'm wondering if I just flatten it out in my hand first. It doesn't give any instructions. They would have known what to do, and I'm sure some of you know what to do. That didn't work. It's not going to be smooth. It's not going to be a pie crust. It's not going to be, I think, what she said it's supposed to be. I don't know how you would do that, though. I mean, unless you had a lot more potatoes, but I don't have enough. I used half the amount of potatoes on the bottom, thinking that, you know, if I used any less on the bottom, it would just have holes in it. But you can see I've got plenty of holes here, so I think I'm going to make another couple baked potatoes in the microwave and use that for the top so I can finish. I've made more. It's hot, but I've made more, and I think 2 more potatoes will do it to cover most of it. And I really don't know how else to do this. So I'm going to voice over this part because somebody had turned on the window air conditioning unit in our dining room, which is super, super loud on camera, but it was about 103 outside, which means it was about 95 degrees in my house, and I didn't even notice because I was so hot. So what I ended up doing was making a couple more potatoes to put over top to seal in the cracks, and it certainly does not look anything like what it was supposed to, in the sense of she said have it to be a smooth top. You can still see gravy in the top of mine, but you know, it turned out okay in the end anyways. But I brushed it with egg to make it give a little bit of a browned color, and you know, overall I think it turned out well. It was edible, but honestly I'm not sure if maybe I just needed a smaller pie tin, but then it wouldn't have fit everything else. So I'm not entirely sure what went wrong on that end, but at least it was just cosmetic and the taste didn't suffer at all. What I gather, this is exactly what we had in casserole form. I hate that word casserole. But you know what? Let's try it. It's kind of almost like a twice baked potato on top because you mash it and then you cook it again. It is, I will say it is nice and crispy because of the, I don't know if that's because of the egg or what, but let's see. I have a feeling I know what this is going to taste like. I almost want to say that's better than what I made before because you get bites of everything all at once. And I know you can do that on a regular roast dinner, but that's good. And psychologically speaking, you know, it is something different than what you had before because it is in a different shape. But, you know, I'm not mad at this at all. I would totally make this again. If you made it this far, thank you so much for supporting the channel. I'm having a lot of fun with these recipes. If you have any that you want me to try out, let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe, hit the little bell notification, and I'll be back next week trying something else out. Bye.